The Manchu Qing Dynasty has established rule over most of China proper. Its last emperor, Shunzhi, embraced the Chinese culture, ruling from Beijing instead of Manchuria. China, under Qing rule, would be brought to its largest territorial extent, over 13,150,000 square kilometers, twice as large as the Ming Dynasty. These conquests would be mostly conducted by the longest reigning monarch in Chinese history, the fourth emperor of the Qing Dynasty, Emperor Kangxi. In 1654, Kangxi was born in the Forbidden City to Emperor Shunzhi and Empress Xiaokangzhang. He was therefore the first Manchu ruler to be born in Beijing and not Manchuria, as his father had been the first Qing emperor to move into the Chinese capital. Shunzhi, whose health had always been very poor, died of smallpox in 1661. At the age of 7, Kangxi was therefore enthroned. Of course, as a child, he could not rule the empire. 4 regents were therefore appointed. 2 Manchu officials who had helped his father obtain full power, Orboy and Sushaha, and another 2, Sonin and Erbilun, were placed as regents by Kangxi's grandmother, Grand Empress Dowager Xiaozhuang. These officials would be the true rulers of China for the years to come. As he was growing up, the child Emperor Kangxi was educated by his grandmother in various faculties of governance, philosophy, arts, and science. As a student, he showed great signs of intelligence and determination in scholar work. He also enjoyed sport. The situation in the country was still unstable. China had just been conquered by the Manchus, and although the Ming court had been destroyed, the Ming loyalist Zheng family, who controlled territory in Fujian province, resisted Manchu rule. The 4 regents ordered a great evacuation edict that expelled from the coastline all inhabitants in the name of the fight. The Zheng family and its followers were successfully expelled from mainland China and fled to Taiwan, where they established the kingdom of Dongning. Ironically, many fishermen and farmers expelled from the coastline suffered from the clearance and decided to join the new country. In 1667, Regent Sonin died. That same year, Regent Orboy, who had a falling out with Sushaha, organized his execution. By doing so, Orboy had also intimidated the last regent Erbilun, strengthened his position, and was slowly taking over the whole government. At the same time, the 13-year-old Kangxi began attending state affairs, sharpening his intellect. 2 years later, advised by his grandmother, Kangxi got ahead of Orboy's plan. He had him arrested on 30 charges and reclaimed imperial power. Erbilun was also stripped of his title. At only 15 years old, Emperor Kangxi had swept away political rivals, and although he still listened to his grandmother's guidance, he now held full imperial authority. A new problem rapidly appeared in the Chinese land. As the Manchus were far less numerous than the native Han Chinese people, it was clear that they could not take control of administration everywhere. Furthermore, the local population preferred to have Han Chinese direct authority. Therefore, the government of the Qing dynasty established the Yi Han Zhi Han system, letting the Han govern the Han. Under this law, the Qing allowed ex-Ming officials and generals who had defected to their side to take administrative charge of the regions they controlled. 3 of them were created kings: Shang Kexi, Gang Jingzhong, and Wu Sangui, an aging general who had been the last pillar of Ming China. But the loyalty of these generals was not strong. Their private armies were powerful, and they would certainly seize a good opportunity to rebel. Since such officials prevented the Qing from centralizing authority in the imperial city of Beijing, the young Emperor Kangxi, prudent as ever, gradually planned to reduce their power and dissolve their armies. King Shang Kexi was however loyal. Since he was old, he asked Kangxi for permission to retire. The young emperor promptly granted the request, and Shang Kexi's son, Shang Zhexin, inherited the position. That same year, in 1673, Kings Wu and Gong discovered about Kangxi's plans for them, and realized this would eliminate their influence. They got together and organized a rebellion. Shang Zhexin soon joined them as well. As Manchu conquest of China was still very recent, bands of soldiers and both Ming loyalist soldiers and opportunistic military commanders joined the uprising that would be known as the 3 Feudatories Rebellion. But the 3 feudatories were not the only enemies Kangxi's court would have to face. By 1676, learning about these events, the Ming loyalist Zheng family, entrenched on Taiwan and head of the Tungning kingdom, embarked with over 150,000 troops for mainland China. Finally, one of the Manchu's first conquered people took the occasion to rebel. Thousands of Chagha Mongols in the north joined the rebellion. 5 different powers were against the Qing court. It was time for Kangxi to lead a war. His father Shunzhi had switched the main military force from the Manchu 8-banner army to the Han-based Green Standard Army, which would be the bulk of the Qing force. The King Wu had moved first by capturing several southern provinces. Realizing he was being flanked by forces that greatly outnumbered him, Kangxi rallied his forces and reorganized. Instead of taking all of the adversaries simultaneously, he would concentrate his forces on a single target at a time. Focusing on the closest enemy, Kangxi mobilized north, and in less than 2 months, the rebel Chagha Mongols were defeated. With no more enemies to the north, Kangxi could send all his troops south. Within 4 more years, the kings Geng and Shang were crushed. 2 enemies were left, King Wu Sangui in the southwest and the Zheng family in Taiwan. As he had grown old, Wu Sangui had become senile. In 1678, he proclaimed himself emperor but fell ill and died several months later. He was succeeded by his grandson, Wu Shifan. Aware of how extreme the situation was, Wu Shifan ordered his troops to a general retreat south. As hope was fading for the rebels, the Qing army grew confident and managed to reclaim the lost land, city by city, province by province. In 1681, the revolt of the 3 feudatories came to an end when the forces of Wu Shifan were cornered in the town of Kunming. With no escape possible, Wu Shifan took his own life, and the remaining rebel forces surrendered the day after. Only Zheng remained to eliminate, and the Qing dynasty would have defeated all its enemies. The ruler of the kingdom of Dongning had however withdrawn his forces back to Taiwan in 1680. The war had taken a toll on his health, and Zheng died of illness in Taiwan shortly after, leaving his son at the head of the Taiwanese kingdom. The country controlled a large navy that disrupted the Qing maritime trade and military affairs. Kangxi, counting on the inexperience of the new Zheng, took the opportunity to campaign against him and rid himself of the Taiwan threat. But the Manchus were inexperienced on sea, as they came from the hills of Manchuria. Kangxi looked for a competent admiral who could lead the navy. Within the Qing ranks, one Han admiral would be a perfect candidate. This soldier, Shi Lang, had originally served under the Taiwanese rulers, but shortly after he defected to the Qing forces, Shi's father, brother and son were all executed by the Zheng family. Since then, Admiral Shi longed for but one thing: vengeance. He knew how the Taiwanese fleet operated and had a personal motive against the Zheng family. Shi Lang was perfect for the task and accepted to go lead the Qing navy. In 1683, at the head of 283 warships, Admiral Shi Lang left the shores to go to war against the Dongning kingdom. He met his enemy off Taiwan at the Pescadores Island. With his 20,000 men, Admiral Shi delivered a decisive blow to the larger Taiwanese force at the Battle of Penghu, inflicting at least 15,000 casualties. The Taiwanese admiral ran out of ammunition and ordered full retreat of what was left of his fleet. The Qing could then raise their flag on the islands. Now defenseless, the Zheng family surrendered to the Qing. In exchange, Kangxi granted it titles, and the island of Taiwan became a formal province of China for the first time in history. Kangxi had proved his worth as a military leader, but his reign would also see a surge in the economy. As the Ming dynasty was profoundly anti-foreign, its court imposed a series of trade bans, greatly restricting trade with foreign nations, especially the recently arrived Europeans. To enrich his nation, Emperor Kangxi relaxed the bans, allowing Europeans to increase their economic activities in several ports in the south, such as Guangzhou or Canton. Kangxi, much like his father Shunzhi, was also fascinated by the knowledge of European Jesuit missionaries in China, and often invited them to his court to study from them subjects such as geometry, mathematics and cartography. As I explained in my video about Shunzhi, many Han farmers were expropriated and became tenants to new Manchu landowners. This led to discontent and lowered production. As Kangxi understood how inefficient agriculture was the basis of a wealthy nation, he returned to farmers their land and exonerated taxes in the poorest areas to allow them to prosper. Peasants throughout the nation became considerably wealthier under his reign, strengthening the economy. Peace and stability were only being established, but war would soon knock on the empire's door again. In the mostly uninhabited Siberian taiga, bands of Russian Cossacks were progressing east. As I mentioned in my Shunzhi video, a skirmish took place in 1658 between the Manchus and Cossacks, the latter being defeated and driven back. Now, the troublesome Russian Cossacks had returned, and they were decided to settle around the Amur River. There would be a war between Manchus and Cossacks, and fighting would be centered around a Russian fortress, Albazino. Stay tuned for the second part coming soon. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or requests, feel free to leave them in the comment section below.